This is Anna from the Yarn Randomizer, and I thought I would take a shot at the first part of my yarn stash tour. It's quiet in the house right now, so we'll see if I can do this. And like and subscribe, please, if you enjoy this, and let's proceed. I'm going to reverse the camera at this point. All right, so on the table here, you see the entirety of my lace weight and light fingering yarn. So we'll start at the beginning. Basically, I've got a bunch of, see if I can hold this well. I have got a bunch of mohair. For example, this is some aerial mohair that I picked up from Jimmy Bean's Wool. I used that in a City Limits sweater, so that's what's left of it. And at some point, I'll figure out what to do with those leftovers. I have a couple of these silky alpaca lace, I think from, trying to remember the manufacturer, Classic Elite, yes. This yarn I had a little shawl made out of that I absolutely loved, and it went through the wash and was destroyed. So I got the same colorway again, and at some point I'll make that again. This is more of the same in a different colorway, and I've made a little hat of that, and maybe if I do a tour of my hats at some point, or kind of a retrospective of my hats, I'll show that off. But that's a lace weight yarn that I made a hat out of, single ply, and that hat took a long time. All right, these are all from Dye Mad Yarns. These are her floof base, which is her mohair base. I have these four, and what I wanted to do is I have those four and four of her fingering weight yarns to go together to make a sweater that I have picked out on my list. And then I have some more of her yellow, this very bright It's Corn floof yarn, and that, let me lean over here, will be going with some Holst Super Stuff I have in the Gold Crest colorway. This will come up later. All right, and then I have this Ella Rae Silky Kid, and that is meant to go with some yarn that I have from the Fiber Seed yarn dyer near Cincinnati, and so you can see how that nice sandcastle colorway I think will go well with this lightly speckled kind of neutral, kind of variegated yarn. So I think it'll help pull it together into a sweater. And the nice thing about this Fiber Seed yarn is there's over 500 yards. These are larger than 100 gram skeins, and so I'll have over 1,000 yards to work with to make a sweater from that. All right, next is some Drops Kid Silk that I got from Wool Warehouse, and that's meant to go with, and it's funny, on camera they look more different color than they do in person, but that's meant to go with some old Jaeger Matchmaker yarn that I have to make a sweater. All right, and then I have some yarn I picked up at a Rocky Mountain knitting retreat, and this is Greenwood, their mohair base, Pheno Fluff in pine, and I got this to go together with two balls of yarn that my husband picked up for me from Big Sky, and these will come up in my tour of my fingering yarns. And so together I'm going to helical knit these all together and make a probably a ranunculus, I think. And so that's that first row. Now for the second row, I have two skeins of this, and this is from Hill Country Weavers in Austin. I went there went to visit my sons in Austin, and they had that yarn, and I bought two of those to go with one of these kind of natural with rainbow speckles fingering yarn. Again, maybe for a ranunculus or a love note. And then also while in Austin, I picked up this Ito mohair, and that's to go with this Dream in Color yarn that I got at Gage, the yarn shop in Austin. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a lot of green, but it's got a similar brown to that. And so I'm going to put those together to make yet another sweater with mohair. Next you see, this is 3 skeins of this. This is Surrey from La Bien Amie, and that is meant to go with this yarn. And this is also from the Fiber Seed near Cincinnati, and this is their Speckled Egg colorway. And I've got 2 of these to combine with those 3, again to make another mohair carry-along sweater. I think I have plenty of those now. These are leftover bits of impression mohair from Madeline Tosh from their craft event this past year, where I was making decorations for the tree or for a garland. These are 2 skeins of Madeline Tosh impression that I bought actually to go with that speckled egg yarn, and I changed my mind about it. So these are kind of waiting in the wings, kind of got to decide what to do with those. All right, now next is marinated yarn. Again, I picked this up at that Rocky Mountain knitting retreat, and these will be going with the same yarn from marinated yarn in fingering weight. And I just love this colorway. Yeah, maple pecan, like it's just so beautiful. I can't wait to make a sweater out of that. This is a tiny bit of leftover of some lace weight alpaca that I used to make a vest this past year. And that, if you look in my stash, all of these, if you look at my stash by weight, will be in the stash, and you can find notes on them so you can see what that vest is. And I carried it with a fingering weight yarn to make it. It turned out very nice. And then this is from, I think from Morehouse. Yes, Morehouse Pure Merino. And so these are lace weight single ply merinos. And I have an idea that I will make something for my husband out of these combined. And so when one of these gets picked in my yarn randomizer, I will be doing that. And then I have some leftover. I have 1 full skein and a partial skein of this from the Superfine Yarn Co., which was a dyer out of Cleveland, Ohio. They're not dyeing anymore, but it's great. They had some great colorways in yarn. And I used this to make a Big Love cardigan, which turned out really nice. And I used that with Manos del Uruguay, some really old Manos del Uruguay wool that I had. All right, now next up here, this is yarn that I got in Peru, and I got it at the Andean Colors. It was a place we toured when I was down there on a trip, and they had lots of knitted garments, but I wanted some yarn, and so our tour guide worked with me to talk with the folks there, and they found a cone of yarn in the back, and I asked for a certain amount of it, and so I got it. And you can see it's this just amazing looking kind of tweedy, heathery kind of yarn in lace weight, and that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with yet. And now we'll get into a lot of these hand-dyed fingerings. This is one from Apple Fiber Dye Works. This is Malala. It was one of their, I think, yarns featured at Jimmy Bean's Wool. And that probably will end up being socks or a shawl. I have some, this is, yeah, Araucania yarn. Just a gray, and that is meant to be available to go with a shawl or socks or anything like that. I have these 2 skeins from Brazen Stitchery. In my first podcast, you'll have seen me make a pair of socks. I made a pair of socks from this. This was the paired mini that I did not use with it, and I'll just use that in something else. But I really like the self-striping yarn from her dye studio. And then this is just some Cascade, I think 220, that I use actually to make a little Superman ornament for a Christmas tree as a gift for a friend. And so that's what I have left of it. Let's see, and then I have some yarn from I think it's Cornbread and Honey, and they are another local Ohio dyer. And I have this really amazing set of fluorescent kind of minis. I don't buy too many minis anymore, but this was when, after the pandemic had started, I wanted to make sure to support local dyers as much as I could, so I picked that up, and I think I'll be able to make something pretty neat out of that. This is another one of this is their fingering. This one's called Sangria, and again, maybe more shawl material, not so much sock, but we'll see. This is some leftover yarn from, I think it's created for you by Laura, a dyer here in Ohio again. And I made a pair of socks out of this. I like the fluorescent kind of green yellow, and they came out very nice. Payday socks was the pattern that I used for that. Next, I have a bunch of yarn I picked up from Vista Dye Works, and so folks might recognize this colorway. This is the Summer Sock Camp 2021, which I have not used yet. At some point that will become socks, and I have a few more from them as well. I have this one's Hairspray, which I found on sale there, and I love the colors in it. And then this one is called Legion, and named after the TV show, and that's a TV show that is it's unusual, but I liked it a lot, and I liked the bright colors in here with the darks, and so we'll see what ends up happening with that. This one was named You're Welcome from Desert Vista Dye Works, and it has a funny little rainbow mini to go with the self-striping, and the result is an interesting result, so I picked that up again. That was one that was on sale. A lot of these I'll pick up on sale at different places. Next one is Fiber Nymph Dye Works. This is a sock blank that's been dyed, and I picked that up on sale. I can't remember where, but I did like the speckling and the gold, the colors, golds and oranges and stuff. And then this was it Forbidden Fibers, that I picked up, I think, at a shop here, and I've made a pair of socks with this, and that's the leftovers. This one is called Watermelon. I think I got it in a Summer Palooza yarn packet, and it's from me to you to yarn, from me to yarn. I really love that, and you can see it's got the little speckles that represent sort of the seeds and everything there. Next is another sock blank, and this, I don't think she does sock blanks anymore, but this came from Gail's Art, who still has a shop, I think still has a shop on Etsy, and mainly sells wool for spinning, but I picked up this blank from her page when I got kind of interested in sock blanks, and so we'll see, when that comes up, I'll figure out what I'm going to do with it. I also have some yarns here from Granite State Yarns. Picked up this, I really like this set. This was, the Bobbing for Apples and Granny Smith, which I really liked. And I think what I'll make is a pair of striped socks with this at some point. And I picked up a couple of minis from her as well at the time. And those will either become cuffs and toes or will fold into a scrap blanket. Now here is the Super Soft from Holst Yarn, and this is, I can't remember if it's total 550 grams, but it's a pretty big amount of yarn. And my intent with this, with that floof that I have over there, the yarn from Dye Mad Yarns, is to make a Felix with this. To use this held double, and then with the mohair. And so so that was a lot of yarn for a pretty good price. And I'd seen it used on, I think, Knitting Ink, and I think on the Knitting Traditions, the woman from Norway, on their podcast, and I liked the way it looked and wanted to give it a try. Now as we come around, these were from a double knit sock blanket, 2 strands in it that I unraveled and rewound. This came from Jimmy Bean's sock club one summer, and so I will definitely make a pair of matching socks with those. And then this is from, I think, Junk Yarn, and I just love the color of this yarn. It has such a neat combination, and I use that in a shawl, which will be covered in my next shawl retrospective. Oops, I just lost a ball of yarn on the floor. Let me pick that up. Okay. This is a little more challenging than I expected it to be. Okay, now, next is this little skein from, I think, Kelborn Woolen Mills, and I just like the bright color there, and it came with another skein of yarn that I can't remember which one it was, but it's there to serve as a pop for socks or whatever I decide to put it in. This, I think, was also from the Jimmy Bean's Wool Summer Sock Club one year. This is La Bien Amie, and this one is Cold Brew, and this is another yarn that I really love the coloring on, and maybe a shawl or something. This, if you've watched the podcast, this was the toes and cuff from a pair of socks I just made. This was called Pursuit, and that was the Lolo Did It yarn. I'm very happy with. Now let's come back around. This is a whole bunch of, I believe, Euro sock from Madeline Tosh here. And it was from a birthday shawl, and I think that will be covered in my next shawl retrospective, but I used every one of these in the shawl, and so I've got a whole bunch of leftovers, so I can imagine making a pair of scrappy socks or something like that with that, or it'll go into whatever. I also have some Maelstrom fiber arts, these really like micro 10-gram minis, a set, and I like the different colors in there. I think I picked that up on sale, and that'll go for heels or toes or into something scrappy. Some black Malabrigo sock, strictly for heels and toes or whatever kind of functional stuff I need to do to go with other colors. And then this is also a bunch of Malabrigo sock left over from Jimmy Bean's Wool annual shawl from last year, from 2022, which I think will be covered in my last shawl retrospective. So it'll be 2 episodes from now. And then this is a mustache yarn I picked up at Stephen B's up in Minnesota. And so the idea is it makes a, perfect self-striping sock. So it'll make 2 identical socks. I love the black with the rainbow. And now I have a bunch of yarn from Pretty Twisted Yarns, and I've really loved her yarn. I made a great pair of socks out of this Clark Were Stuck Under a Truck, I think is the name of this one here. And this one is, I like this one. It was After the Rain. And so what it has is it has mostly gray and then little sets of rainbow stripes every so often. And so I can't wait to use that one. That'll be a lot of fun. And then some more of her yarn, and this one's Zombie Apocalypse, and I really like this because it had the bright colors, but the gray has speckling in it, and so it produces a really nice result. This yarn I think I won in 2021 from the Crazy Sock Lady, and this is from Republic of Wool, and just a beautiful variegated sock set. And we'll see when that comes out. Let's see. This one is from the Grocery Girls, from their Knitiversary, from their anniversary. And again, beautiful Rose Hill yarns, beautiful variegated yarn with a really interesting paired sock mini. And then I picked this one up on sale somewhere. This is Sockenmeyer. It's these City Street colors, and I don't know if you can see. it produces almost a like camo effect, and so I was kind of intrigued by that and wanted to give that a try, so I picked up a skein of that. Now I have 2 skeins of this Zauberball. It's a single ply variegated, and I had one. Well, then I saw somebody's Botanic Shawl by Stephen West, and so I shopped through people's stashes and I picked up the second skein of it, and I'm going to use that with another pair of skeins from Hypnotic Yarn to make. That's definitely planned for the Botanic Shawl. I think I saw that at first on Piece for Piece Crafting, another podcast. He does some great work. Let's see, and then now next, this is going to be a whole bunch of Stitched Together Studio yarn. There's this one is Glowworm. Now this Glowworm and another one down here I used in the City Limits sweater that I used the black mohair in. This was the Beltane set from 2022. I used the main skein to make a pair of socks from a pattern from the Crazy Sock Lady that turned out really nice. I love the yellows and the pinks and the really beautiful speckling in that. These were the 2 minis it came with, which I'll figure out they'll come up and get used at some point. This skein I have been saving, and this one's called King Cake. And you can see why if you know anything about what king cakes are. This will definitely be a pair of socks for my husband. And in between the little bit that I have left of a yarn colorway she has called Rainbow Blip. Now I saw a pair of socks made out of Rainbow Blip on the Sweet Tea No Shade podcast. And when I saw them, I just had to have it. So I hunted around, found a skein of the yarn, made a pair of socks. It's one of my favorite pairs of socks that I have. And so maybe that's a reason to do a sock retrospective, because I have a lot of pairs of socks. Here's another one of hers called Self Love. These great pinks and stuff in here. A couple of random minis that I received from her. This is one called Eat My Shorts. And that's used in my City Limit sweater. And this is a colorway specific to the local 614 knit studio yarn shop called Guinness from Stitched Together. And that's I've made a few little things out of that. Finally, one more skein, or no, there's still more. This orange from Stitched Together Studio, and it's a one of a kind that they had. I plan to use this with some other yarns that I have to make a On the Spice Market by Melanie Berg. And you will see those right next here. 2 sock skeins from Stitched Together Studio. And just again, some great variegation, great colors. Here, these are her Targhee base. And then these are all from Unplanned Peacock. And what I intend to do is use these along with the orange and then On the Spice Market. So the black will be the primary color, and then I'll be using these other ones. I picked the orange to go with it because I think these go pretty well together, this variegated with those. And so this was a mini set from them along with and then I picked a skein for the main color. So those will be nice. Now next, this is yarn from a place that doesn't die anymore, Vicious Yarns, which I absolutely loved. I made the most gorgeous pair of socks out of this colorway, and it's called Flap Dragon. And the result on these is just so nice, and I love I love their vivid colors. I have some other ones in my stash, but these 2 came from a X-Files year-long sock club. There were 4 skeins. I've got the other 2 are in the fingering weight, but these I'm going to try to use all 4 of them together to make an X-Files shawl. But this one's called Beyond the Sea, and this one is called, let's see, Postmodern Prometheus. And so there's a couple more colorways, and I think just to kind of celebrate Vicious Fibers, I'll make a shawl just using those 4 skeins and call it my X-Files shawl. And so we'll see when we get to that. Now these next yarns are from, let's see, the company is, yes, Wonderland Yarns. And this is a yarn colorway called Dreadfully Frightened, which I really like the look of. It's got these little specks of other colors in there. And I used this in a shawl along with this plum. And you'll see that in the shawl retrospective, I think, in the next episode. I was a little disappointed in how this knitted up in the shawl, so maybe it would be better for socks. I may try to make a pair of socks out of this next. And similarly, this is dyed in a similar fashion. This is another colorway with the kind of same dyeing approach, and it is called, the color of this one is, I don't think I can read it. Looks like, well, maybe. I don't know. And so I'll have to look. It's probably listed in my stash. But again, I love these little groupings of speckles in one section of the yarn, and then the light and the dark contrast there. So we'll see how that knits up. We'll see when I get to it if it's going to be socks or a shawl. I had made a pair of socks out of this, and this is another one of the Wonderland Yarns fingering yarns, I think, called Marianne. And those turned out very nice. And finally, the end of my list of light fingering yarns. This is a set that came from Stephen B's yarn shop. He had a 2-month club that was related to the Marvel movie, the cinematic universe, and this one is related to the Power Stones. So you'll see all the different colors of the Power Stones, and I think these are by Yeti Yarns. And then this one, you get to laugh if you know the Marvel comic universe, but this one is called Snap. And so the idea is you could make your own power, the glove, the gauntlet, the Infinity Gauntlet with this set. I will not do that. I'll do something else. But, and we'll see when we get there. But yeah, so that is it. I don't know if this is the right level of detail, but you can let me know what you think. And yeah, I think that's everything that's here for this set. So this is the first part of my stash tour, and it is and this also comprises me reorganizing my yarn and doing a stash toss to inspect that there's no problems, no bugs or anything, and so looks good. So let me know if you like going through my yarn this way, or if there's things I need to change or could make this better. But I hope you enjoyed it, and like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time. Enjoy your knits.